Lily's fists trembled, hidden in the pockets of her jeans. She felt their gazes like a sticky web on her back, without even lifting her head. Another day, another corridor, smelling of old plaster and someone's overly sweet perfume mixed with the barely discernible scent of school cleaning supplies. 5 years and 4 schools. Every time the same. New faces, new rules, a new social hierarchy to decipher without making a fatal mistake. But this time she knew something would change, or she would break. She was 16, and she was new again. That word rang in her head like a curse. New girl, the 4th school in 5 years. 4 cities, 4 attempts to pretend to be someone she wasn't just to survive the day. She was short, with a fragile build, wavy chestnut hair that always had a life of its own, and glasses with thick frames that hid her large brown eyes. Lily didn't stand out in a crowd, and usually she liked it that way. She was used to being invisible, blending into the background to avoid trouble. But deep down, she knew that beneath this mask lay something entirely different. She remembered the first school, where she was simply ignored. She was there for only half a year, but even that was enough to feel like a ghost. She recalled the cold, indifferent looks of her classmates when she tried to speak, and how her voice would get stuck in her throat. The second school, where her unusual glasses became a reason for nicknames. 4 Eyes, Nerd, Bottle Glasses. She was 11 then, and those words burned more than any blow. She remembered crying at night, burying her face in her pillow, trying to stifle the hurt and humiliation. The third school, in a small town in the Midwest, where the bullying was so sophisticated that she nearly broke before her father pulled her out. It all started with little things: damaged textbooks, anonymous notes with threats, and then escalated into constant tripping in the hallways and taunts in the locker room. One day, on the worst day, a group of girls locked her in the bathroom and pelted her with trash, their laughter echoing off the tiled walls. Lily felt her lungs constrict with fear as tears streamed down her cheeks. Memories of those days still made her stomach knot tightly. It was then that her father, a former Army Ranger with his stern yet loving eyes, said, "Lily, you need to learn to defend yourself, not for attacking, but for peace within yourself." He trained her himself in the garage, which he transformed into a small but functional dojo. She remembered the smell of sweat and old rubber mixed with the metallic taste of her own fear and determination. The sound of her strikes against the heavy bag was almost meditative, a rhythm that calmed her nerves. 9 years of intensive training Baron turned her into a formidable fighter with lightning-fast reflexes. A black belt in Sambo, and impressive skills in Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. She could take down opponents twice her size without breaking a sweat. Her father often said, "Lily, a true warrior knows when not to fight. Strength isn't about defeating everyone, but about protecting yourself and those who cannot do so. But if you are threatened, if your safety is at stake, you must be ready. Your skills are your shield, not your sword. Remember that." She never boasted about it. Her parents always taught her that fighting was only for self-defense, never for show. Besides, always being the new girl meant trying to blend in with the crowd rather than stand out, which was nearly impossible given her unusual skills. Northwood High School was a massive brick building on the outskirts of Maple Creek, with nearly 2,000 students clearly divided into social groups. Lily had been here for exactly 2 weeks and had already created a map of dangerous zones. The back corridor near the gym, where athletes always gathered, their loud voices and laughter echoing throughout the wing, bouncing off the tiled walls. The smoking area behind the cafeteria, where upperclassmen gathered, breaking the rules, and the air was thick with the smell of cigarettes and gossip. And the eastern staircase, where the self-proclaimed kings of the school held court. These kings were led by Jake Miller, a senior with perfectly styled dark hair, expensive clothes, and a perpetual smirk that teachers somehow never noticed. His main henchmen were Brad Thompson, a football player with big muscles and a sparse intellect, and Kevin Davis, a skinny guy with cold eyes who seemed to genuinely enjoy other people's discomfort. They moved through the school as if they owned it, and in many ways they did. "Stay away from Jake and his gang," Chloe's voice echoed in her ears, the first and so far only friendly soul she had met in English class. Chloe, with her freckled face and a mane of red hair, seemed to be the only person in this huge school willing to not just look through her. Every semester they pick a new victim. Last year they drove a 7th grader to transfer to another school. He was as quiet as you, so they decided he was easy prey. "I saw him crying in the bathroom. It was awful. No one could do anything." Lily couldn't afford to become the next victim. She clenched her fists in her pockets. She squeezed them so tightly that her nails dug into her palms, leaving little crescent marks. For the first 2 weeks, Lily had successfully avoided their attention. She took detours between classes, making loops across the entire schoolyard to avoid crossing paths with them. He ate lunch in the library, hiding behind the shelves of books, where the smell of old paper and silence was only broken by the occasional rustle of pages. She tried to be as inconspicuous as possible, barely breathing when they walked by. But as she learned, invisibility has a limited shelf life. It all started, as it often does, with a small incident. In chemistry class, her hands were occupied with books when, turning a corner, she nearly collided with Brad. He was leaning against the lockers with 2 of his friends, blocking the entire passage. His t-shirt was stretched over massive biceps, and a self-satisfied smirk played on his face. The smell of his cologne was sharp and unpleasant. "Watch where you're going," he snapped, his voice low and threatening, and his eyes narrowed as he looked her up and down. Lily felt her heart race like a trapped bird flapping in a cage. She mumbled, "Sorry," and tried to squeeze past him, pressing herself against the wall, feeling her backpack rub against the cold metal of the lockers. "Hey," he called out, and his voice made her stop. She froze like a rabbit before a snake. "You're the new girl, right? What's your name?" Lily hesitated, then replied without turning around, her voice barely audible. "Lily." "Lily," he repeated mockingly, stretching out the syllables, and his friend snickered. "Next time, watch where you're going, Lily." She felt his gaze on her back like a burning coal. Something inside her tightened, like a taut spring ready to snap. She recognized the assessing look in his eyes. She had seen it before in other schools, a predator's gaze selecting potential prey. It was a look that foretold trouble, and she knew that this trouble was just beginning. The next day, her books were knocked out of her hands as she stood by her locker, trying to grab her history textbook. They fell to the floor with a crash, scattering across the hallway like autumn leaves. She looked up and saw Kevin walking away, laughing with a group of his friends. His laughter was thin and sneering, like the creak of an ungreased door. "Oops," he shouted over his shoulder. "Clumsy hands." Lily slowly bent down, gathering her books. Her fists clenched, but she forced herself to relax. "Not now," she whispered to herself. "Not here. Not today." She felt the stares, the whispers, but tried to ignore them. A few days later, Jake slid into the seat next to her in the cafeteria, just when she decided it was safe to eat there instead of the library. The cafeteria buzzed with hundreds of voices, the smells of pizza and fries mingling with the sharp scent of bleach from cleaning supplies. Lily chose the farthest table in the corner, hoping to go unnoticed. But Jake found her. He moved with the confidence of someone who knows he can do anything, his steps loud and deliberately careless. "So you're our new charity case," he said casually, as if they were old friends. His grin was wider than usual, and mischief danced in his eyes. "Lily, nobody from nowhere." Lily kept her eyes on her food, trying to ignore him. She focused on separating the peas on her plate, feeling the fork scrape against the plastic. "Just trying to have lunch." "Aren't we all?" Jake smirked at his unfunny joke, his eyes sliding over her plate. "Here's the thing, newbie. Things are set up a certain way here. And rule number 1 is knowing your place. He leaned closer, his voice dropping, becoming more threatening, like the hiss of a snake sliding through grass. And your place is not here, with normal people. He leaned back, appraising her, his gaze heavy and dismissive. Well, I'm not sure yet, but we'll figure that out for you. Lily felt her muscles tense, her body instinctively prepared for a threat, every nerve taut like a violin string. She consciously relaxed, focusing on her breathing as her coach had taught her. Inhale, exhale, control. You can't fight here. You can't. To the greeting, she said dryly, gathering her things. Her voice was steady, but inside everything was boiling. She felt the heat rising to her face like a tide. But I'll find my own place. Jake's hand shot forward, grabbing her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to assert his position. For a split second, Lily calculated how easily she could break free from his grip, how simply she could throw Jake over the table, how quickly she could take him down in a way that would leave him gasping. She imagined his face contorted in pain and surprise. She pictured his confidence crumbling like a house of cards. But instead, she did what was expected of the shy newcomer. She yanked her hand away and hurried out of the cafeteria to the sounds of laughter that seemed to chase her down the hallway, seeping into every corner of her mind like toxic gas. After that, the incidents increased. Her books regularly ended up on the floor. Her locker was glued shut with chewing gum, and sometimes with something worse than gum, like smeared ketchup or sticky syrup that clung to her fingers. Whispers followed her in the hallways like a pack of hungry dogs, their barking almost palpable. Rumors about why she transferred, each one more ridiculous and humiliating than the last. Crude jokes about her appearance, her clothes, her quiet demeanor. In class, anonymous paper balls hit her in the back of the head when the teacher wasn't looking. Once, as she was going down the stairs, someone shoved her so hard that she nearly fell, but managed to grab the railing. Her heart raced, and she felt anger rising within her, hot and uncontrollable. She gritted her teeth, her jaw aching from the tension, but she forced herself to keep walking, not looking back. It was no different from what Lily had faced before, and nothing she couldn't handle. She kept to herself, did her work, and tried to survive each day. In the evening, she trained in the garage that had converted into a small home gym. The smell of sweat and old rubber filled the air, mingling with the scent of machine oil. She pounded on the boxing bag, each strike a release of pent-up anger and frustration. Her body moved fluidly as if in a dance, every punch, every block, every dodge honed by years of training. She imagined an opponent, invisible yet palpable, and practiced combinations that could take anyone down. It's never worth it, she repeated to herself, hitting the bag, her breath heavy and ragged. It will only make things worse. That's what they want, a reaction. They want me to snap. But Jake and his crew seemed to perceive her lack of reaction as an added challenge. They were used to getting responses, tears, anger, pleas. Lily's calm detachment clearly irritated them, making them push harder. They wanted to see her broken, wanted her to react like all their previous victims had. They craved the spectacle, thirsted for her downfall. 3 weeks later, Lily found herself cornered on the east staircase after school. She had lingered, working on a project in the library, and the hallways were nearly empty. It was already getting dark outside, and the rare rays of the setting sun filtered through the tall windows, casting long, ominous shadows that danced on the walls like ghosts. She heard their footsteps, heavy and confident, approaching from below. The scrape of soles on concrete, low laughter. She saw them climbing up. Jake in front, Brad and Kevin flanking him like loyal lieutenants, their shadows stretching and distorting on the walls, turning them into monsters. There was nowhere to go. The staircase was the only way out, and they had blocked it. "Well, look who it is," Jake said. His voice echoed in the empty stairwell, amplifying the sense of threat, like a predator cornering its prey. Lily, nobody, all alone. Lily tightened her grip on the strap of her backpack, her fingers whitening with tension. Her heart pounded like a drum, but her mind remained cold as ice. I need to go home, she said, trying to make her voice sound firm, but a note of desperation slipped through. Hey guys! Jake looked at his friends and they smirked, their faces twisted with glee. She needs to go home. Probably going to cry to mommy about how mean everyone is at her new school, Kevin added, his eyes gleaming with malice like a snake's. I saw her in gym class, Brad chimed in, stepping forward, his massive figure blocking the light and throwing Lily into shadow. She always changes in the bathroom stall, must be embarrassed about her body. Though there's really nothing to look at, Kevin finished, and they all laughed, their laughter echoing off the walls, surrounding Lily like a wall of sound, pressing in from all sides. Lily felt her cheeks flush. She changed separately, not out of embarrassment, but because she didn't want anyone to see the well-developed muscles that would give away her training. She felt anger rising within her, hot and unstoppable, like lava ready to burst forth. Just let me pass, she said, trying to speak evenly, but there was already steel in her voice, thin but sharp as a blade. Or what? Kevin stepped closer, his tone mocking, eyes full of challenge. What are you going to do about it? Nothing, Lily thought, her mind racing for an escape. I won't do anything because that's how I always handle things. That was the rule at my last school and the one before that. Keep your head down. Don't draw attention. We'll be moving soon anyway. She remembered her father's words. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not fight. But this time, only her father had promised that this time they would stay. At least until she graduated. This wasn't a temporary situation to ride out. This was her life now, her real life, and she couldn't let them destroy it. She couldn't let them break her. I just want to go home, she repeated, hating how weak her voice sounded, how it trembled, betraying her internal struggle, her despair. Jake stood directly in front of her, completely blocking her path. His face was just inches from hers, and she could feel his breath, smelling of gum. His smirk was wide and self-satisfied. You know what your problem is, Lily? You think you're better than us? You walk around so quiet, like you're so above it all, that you can't even be bothered to react. I don't think that, Lily said, her gaze locked onto his eyes, trying to find something human in them, some spark of doubt. Liar, Kevin hissed, approaching from the side, his voice dripping with contempt. Everyone talks about how you look at people like they're beneath you. Lily had deliberately tried not to make eye contact with anyone to avoid drawing attention, but she understood that it didn't matter. They had already decided who she was and what she deserved. They saw her as a victim, and nothing she could say would change their minds. Step aside, she said, with a slight push, her voice rising a bit, carrying a note of warning that seemed to make Jake flinch for a moment. Make me, Jake replied, defiantly, taking another step toward her, his smirk widening into a snarl. And then Brad was behind her, too close, and she felt his hand sliding down her back. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead. This was the red line. This was what her father called the point of no return. It was a violation of all boundaries, all rules. Maybe she needs a little attention, he said with a laugh in his voice, his breath scorching her neck. Let's show her how we welcome newcomers. Lily felt a calm, icy realization wash over her. Time seemed to slow to infinity as she felt Brad's hand moving toward her backside. In that moment, all the training, all the years of restraint, all her father's lessons converged into one point. Without thinking, obeying pure instinct and years of training, she spun around, catching his wrist in a grip that made him gasp in surprise. In one smooth motion, using his own momentum, she twisted his arm behind his back, slamming his face into the wall with a dull thud that echoed through the empty stairwell. What Jake began, his eyes widening in shock as he saw his massive friend sliding down the wall.
What the?
Brad exhaled, sliding down the wall, his face contorted in pain and confusion. He looked like a fish thrown ashore, gasping for air. Lily had already released Brad and turned her attention to the leader. She moved with a speed that seemed impossible for someone her size, like a shadow gliding across the floor. Sweeping Jake's legs out from under him with a practiced kick, she sent him crashing down onto his back. Air whooshed painfully from his lungs, and he coughed, trying to breathe. Seeing his friends taken down in mere seconds, Kevin charged at Lily with a wild and furious scream. His eyes were filled with rage, resembling an enraged cat pouncing into attack. She easily dodged, using his own movement against him, and threw him over her hip. He landed next to Jake with a dull thud that echoed through the stairwell. The entire conflict lasted less than 10 seconds. Lily stood amidst the fallen bullies, her breathing steady, poised, balanced, and ready to continue. 9 years of training made these movements as natural to her as walking. "Never touch me again," she said, her voice low and controlled, but it carried an unmistakable threat that made them flinch. "Don't talk to me. Don't look at me. Leave me alone." Brad was the first to recover, getting up from the floor, his face flushed with a mix of pain, shock, and humiliation. He rubbed his wrist, his eyes filled with disbelief. "You're crazy," he exhaled. "No," Lily corrected him, calmly adjusting her glasses that had slipped down her nose. "I'm trained. There's a difference." She stepped over Jake, who was still trying to catch his breath, and headed down the stairs. Each of her steps was firm and confident, as if she were walking down a runway. Only when she was outside the building and the cool evening air hit her face did she allow herself to feel the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a rush of adrenaline and the release of a week's worth of built-up tension. "Dad is going to kill me," she thought, but deep down she knew he would understand. This wasn't a show or a search for a fight. It was real self-defense. "Finally," she whispered, and that word was filled with bitter satisfaction. She felt free, as if she had shed heavy chains. What Lily didn't realize was that they weren't alone on that staircase. Chloe, the girl who had first warned her about Jake and his gang, was climbing the stairs to retrieve a forgotten book from the library. She had witnessed the entire conflict, hiding around the corner and watching with wide eyes. Her heart raced with fear and admiration. The next morning, the story spread through Northwood High School like wildfire, becoming more elaborate with each retelling. Lily arrived at school to find people staring at her. Conversations stopped as she walked by, but this time it was different. There was no mockery or cruel amusement in those gazes. Instead, she saw something new: respect, admiration, and a bit of fear. Some students who had previously been victims of bullying looked at her with timid hope. "Is it true, Betty?" Chloe intercepted her before first period, her voice full of awe. "Did you really take all 3 of them down? I saw it. It was incredible. You're like a superhero." Lily felt her stomach clench. She still wasn't used to such attention, to being looked at as more than an invisible person. "I don't want to talk about it." "They say you're like a ninja," chimed in another girl named Maya, whom Lily had never spoken to before, her eyes sparkling. "That you threw Brad over your head," added a boy named Sam, whom Lily had also never talked to, his voice filled with admiration. "Jake is telling everyone he let you win," said another. "But Kevin has a bruise the size of a football on his thigh and Brad can barely turn his head." Lily closed her eyes for a moment. This was exactly what she didn't want. Attention, rumors, being the center of everyone's discussion. But what was done was done. She endured the morning in a haze of whispers and glances. By lunchtime, she had heard at least 5 different versions of the fight, each one more exaggerated than the last. According to some, she knocked all 3 boys out with a single left punch, and then danced a victory dance. Others claimed she had hidden martial arts weapons in her backpack, nunchucks or a katana, and that she used them with incredible skill. One particularly creative seventh grader told everyone who would listen that Lily was part of a secret government training program and that she was there to recruit other teens into a covert army that would fight injustice. But the most astonishing part was that Jake, Brad, and Kevin were nowhere to be seen. They weren't in the cafeteria at their usual table, where they typically sat like kings on a throne, devouring pizza and mocking everyone. They weren't patrolling the hallways between classes, their arrogant gazes not gliding over the faces of other students. It seemed they had vanished, as if they had dissolved into thin air. Lily sat alone at lunch, poking at her food and trying to ignore the stares when she felt someone sit down on the bench across from her. She looked up and saw Jake, but not with his usual self-assurance. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes downcast, a bruise forming at the base of his throat where he had hit the floor. He looked embarrassed and uncertain. "What?" Lily asked, tensing up immediately, bracing for another wave of mockery. Jake glanced around, clearly feeling awkward under the dozens of watching eyes. He cleared his throat. "I just wanted to apologize, I guess, for everything. What we did was awful. My dad, he was furious. He said I brought shame to our family. He even threatened to take my car away. And the football coach, he said if I do something like that again, I'll be kicked off the team. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know what came over me." His voice was quiet, almost inaudible amid the noise of the cafeteria, and there was not a trace of his former arrogance. The red spot creeping up Jake's neck suggested it was sincere. A mix of shame and awkwardness was evident in his eyes. "Okay," Lily simply said. She still felt the pain and humiliation from his actions, but she could see that he was genuine. "What do you want me to do? I don't know if I forgive you yet. I need time. And so do you." "I understand," Jake said, his shoulders dropping even lower. I don't know what to do. Everyone at school looks at me like I'm a monster. My old friends, they laugh at me. Brad and Kevin, they don't know what to do either. We're lost. I don't know who I am anymore." Lily looked at him. For the first time, she saw in him not just a bully, but a teenager who was lost, who was just as scared as those he had bullied. She remembered her father's words about how true strength is not just about protecting yourself, but also about helping others. "Listen," Lily continued, "I'm teaching a self-defense class for girls next week. I could use a volunteer for demonstrations. Someone who can help me show techniques so the girls can practice. Someone who won't hurt them." Jake's eyebrows shot up. "You want me to help? After everything I've done? You trust me?" "It's not about you," Lily explained. "It's about helping other girls learn to defend themselves. And maybe it will help you understand what you've done and start to change. This is your chance to make things right. If you want to change how people see you, you have to start by changing how you act." Jake hesitated, then slowly nodded. A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. I'll try. Thank you, Lily. I won't let you down. I promise." At that moment, an announcement came over the loudspeaker, interrupting their conversation. "Lily Evans, please report to the principal's office." The secretary's voice was stern and brooked no argument. "Looks like someone told," she said, gathering her things. "It wasn't me," Jake quickly said, his eyes meeting hers. "And it wasn't Brad or Kevin. We didn't tell anyone, I swear. We were too scared." Lily studied him closely, trying to detect a lie, but he seemed sincere. "Thanks, I guess." On her way to the principal's office, Lily braced herself for the worst. A fight on school grounds meant automatic suspension in most schools, possibly even expulsion. They would call her parents. There would be talks about her anger management issues and proper conflict resolution. She had been through this before, at her first school, when she finally snapped after months of bullying. Back then, she was suspended for 3 days while the bullies got off with a stern talking to. The irony was that the bullies received no punishment other than a stern talking to. She felt the old fear rising within her, cold and sticky like a web. Principal Reynolds was a strict woman with silver hair pulled back into a tight bun and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. She gestured for Lily to sit across from her desk. The office was impeccably clean, with not a single stray piece of paper on the desk, just a neat stack of documents. "Evans," she began, her voice was hoarse but not hostile. "I have heard troubling reports about an altercation yesterday afternoon on the east staircase. Very troubling reports, and I must say they deeply concern me." Lily took a deep breath. "Yes, Principal Reynolds." "Would you care to explain what happened?" Principal Reynolds folded her hands on the table, her gaze penetrating. "I want to hear your version of events. The whole truth, no embellishments." Lily told the truth without sugarcoating or making excuses. She explained how Jake, Brad, and Kevin had been harassing her for weeks, how they constantly humiliated her, how this bullying affected her life, her ability to focus on her studies, her sleep. She described how they cornered her on the stairs and how Brad tried to grope her. She admitted that she used her martial arts skills for self-defense because she felt she had no other choice. "I know that fighting is prohibited," she concluded, her voice firm, "and I am willing to accept any punishment you deem necessary, but I want to clarify that I did not start this and did only what I believed was necessary for my protection. I did not want to fight. I just wanted to be left alone. I tried to ignore them to avoid them, but they wouldn't leave me alone. I had exhausted all other options." Principal Reynolds listened without interrupting, her expression revealing nothing. Lily couldn't understand what she was thinking. All she saw in her eyes was a cold assessment, and it made her heart tighten. Lily felt hope slowly fading away. She knew how it went. Bullies always got away with it. Now the principal leaned forward, her hands folded on the table. "Evans, do you know that we have surveillance cameras on all stairwells?" Her voice was even, emotionless, as if she were reading an official document. "No, Principal Reynolds," Lily whispered, her heart skipping a beat. "And I reviewed the footage from yesterday very carefully." The principal picked up the remote and turned to a small screen on the wall. "Would you like to watch?" Without waiting for a response, she pressed the play button. The grainy black and white footage clearly showed how Lisa was cornered. It showed Brad's hand moving toward her backside. It showed her effective self-defense moves that took all 3 boys down to the floor without causing serious injury. The entire incident, exactly as Lily had described, was captured on film. Lily watched the screen, feeling a strange detachment, as if this was happening to someone else. It was evidence, undeniable and cold. Principal Reynolds paused the video. Her gaze was firm, but now there was a hint of determination in it. "Sexual harassment, a serious violation in this school, Evans. Just like physical bullying and harassment. All 3 young men are suspended for 3 days, and Thompson will face additional disciplinary measures for his inappropriate touching. His parents will be notified, and we will consider involving the police if they do not cooperate. We will not tolerate such behavior at Northwood. No one should feel unsafe within the walls of this school." Lily blinked in surprise. She had been expecting punishment, but not this outcome. "I'm not being punished for defending myself against unwanted sexual contact." "Of course not." The principal's expression softened slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her face. "Although I would appreciate it if you considered less dramatic self-defense methods in the future. Perhaps a cry for help or reporting the harassment to a teacher before the situation escalates to that extent. We strive to create a safe environment for all our students, and we value when issues are reported to us before they spiral out of control. But in this case, Evans, you did the right thing. You protected yourself, and I am proud of you." "Yes, Principal Reynolds," Lily said, feeling an immense sense of relief. The burden she had been carrying on her shoulders for weeks seemed to dissolve instantly, like ice under the sun. By the way, the principal continued, your martial arts skills are quite impressive. Our girls' self-defense club could use someone with your experience. Perhaps you would consider becoming a volunteer instructor. It could be a more constructive outlet for your abilities, and you could help other girls who might be facing similar issues. We want every girl in this school to feel safe and know how to stand up for herself. Lily felt a genuine smile spread across her face for the first time in weeks. It was an offer she could hardly have imagined. I would really like that. When Lily returned to class, whispers followed her, but they were different. News of the suspended bullies spread along with rumors that Lily had been asked to teach self-defense. By the end of the day, 3 different girls approached her asking to learn the moves she had used against Brad. Lily, is it true? One of them, named Samantha, asked. A shy girl who always sat at the back of the class and never spoke to anyone. Her eyes were wide open, full of hope. Can you teach me that? I'm so tired of being pushed around in the halls. I don't know what to do. Of course, Lily replied, her voice carrying a new confidence. Come to the gym after school tomorrow. We'll start with the basics, and you're not alone. What about me? Asked Maya, the very girl who admired Lily as a ninja. And me, added another. Real change came the following week when Jake, Brad, and Kevin returned after their suspension. They were quiet, avoiding eye contact with Lily as they passed her in the halls. Some students still looked at them with suspicion, and teachers seemed to watch them more closely than usual. Brad, in particular, seemed to give her a wide berth, looking at the floor when she was nearby, his usually confident stride now uncertain, almost shuffling. Once, Lily noticed him automatically reaching out to shove someone in the hallway, but he stopped abruptly, his face contorted in a grimace of self-control. But something unexpected happened on Wednesday. Lily was having lunch with Chloe and a few other girls who had joined them at the table. They were discussing plans for the first self-defense club meeting. Suddenly, Jake approached their table. Conversation immediately ceased. Everyone watched warily, bracing for the worst. Can I talk to you? He asked Lily, his voice low and uncertain, almost pleading. In private? Lily hesitated, then nodded. I'll be right back, she told her new friends, who exchanged worried glances but allowed her to go. She followed Jake to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, keeping a cautious distance. What's up? She asked, crossing her arms over her chest. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, clearly feeling awkward. He avoided her gaze, staring at his shoes. I just wanted to apologize, I guess, for everything. What we did was awful. My dad, he was furious. He said I embarrassed our family. He even threatened to take away my car. And the football coach, he said if I do something like that again, I'll be off the team. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I really am. I don't know what got into me. His voice was quiet, almost inaudible in the noise of the cafeteria, and there was not a trace of his previous arrogance. The red spot creeping up Jake's neck suggested that it was sincere. A mix of shame and awkwardness was evident in his eyes. Okay, Lily simply said. She still felt the pain and humiliation from his actions, but she could see that he was sincere. What do you want me to say? I don't know if I forgive you yet. I need time, and so do you. I understand, Jake said, his shoulders slumping even lower. I don't know what to do. Everyone at school looks at me like I'm a monster. My old friends, they laugh at me. Brad and Kevin, they don't know what to do either. We're lost. I don't know who I am anymore. Lily looked at him. For the first time, she saw in him not just a bully, but a teenager who was lost, who was just as scared as those he had bullied. She remembered her father's words that true strength is not just about protecting oneself, but also about helping others. Listen, Lily continued, I'm holding self-defense classes for girls next week. I could use a volunteer for demonstrations. Someone who can help me show techniques so the girls can practice. Someone who won't hurt them. Jake's eyebrows shot up. You want me to help? After everything I've done, you trust me? It's not about you, Lily explained. It's about helping other girls learn to defend themselves. And maybe it will help you understand what you've done and start to change. This is your chance to make things right. If you want to change how people see you, you have to start with changing how you act. Jake hesitated, then slowly nodded. A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. I'll try. Thank you, Lily. I won't let you down. I promise. In the following weeks, changes occurred at Northwood High School that no one could have predicted. The number of participants in the self-defense club tripled. Lily held workshops twice a week, and each time the gym was full. She taught the girls not only physical techniques, but also how to set boundaries, how to use their voices, how to be confident. She taught them not to be afraid, but to be strong, both inside and out. Jake, true to his word, came as a volunteer. At first, he was awkward, his movements clumsy, and his explanations jumbled. His old friends, who had not fully changed yet, sometimes teased him as they passed by the gym. "Hey Jake, are you a dance instructor now?" someone yelled. Jake blushed but kept going. He felt out of his element. But every time he saw one of the girls successfully execute a technique, or when he saw fear leave their eyes, he felt like he was doing something right. Lily patiently guided him, showing him how to fall properly, how to safely demonstrate holds. He learned quickly, and soon his presence was seen not as a humiliation, but as proof of his genuine desire to change. The girls who had initially feared him began to trust him, seeing how hard he was trying. Kevin joined the art club, where his talent for drawing found a more positive outlet. His drawings, once filled with dark, aggressive images, became brighter, featuring vivid colors and even humor. He started drawing caricatures of teachers that elicited laughter instead of fear. He even created a few posters for the self-defense club, depicting Lily in a superhero pose and Jake as her loyal sidekick. After a serious talk with the football coach about respect for women, Brad became almost painfully polite. The coach, learning about the harassment, was furious. He benched Brad for 2 games and made him write an apology to Lily and attend several sessions with the school psychologist. Brad began to open doors for everyone, even teachers, and always offered to help if he saw someone drop something. His football teammates initially teased him, but soon noticed that the girls at school started to treat him much friendlier, which made them think. Brad realized that the respect of others was far more valuable than the fear he once instilled. Lily gained what she had never had in her previous schools, true friends who knew her strengths and respected her for them. Chloe became her best friend. They spent hours together, chatting about school, future plans, and even boys. Chloe, who had previously been just friendly, became more self-assured, inspired by Lily's example. She even started attending self-defense classes, and one day when a senior tried to push a younger girl in the hallway, Chloe, recalling Lily's lessons, firmly said, "Leave her alone." And to her surprise, the guy backed off. The self-defense club became a hub, a place where girls felt safe, learned to be strong, and found support. Lily watched as the girls changed, becoming more confident, their backs straightening, and their gazes hardening. She saw fear leave their eyes, replaced by determination. One day, Samantha, the shy girl, approached Lily with shining eyes. "Lily, thank you," she said. "Yesterday during recess, a guy tried to push me, as usual. But I remembered what you said about posture, and I just firmly told him, 'Don't touch me.' And he just walked away. I never thought I could do that. You taught me to be strong." Another girl named Emily shared how the club helped her speak more confidently during her history presentation, even though she had always been afraid of public speaking. "I just imagined it was another round of training, and I had to be strong," she told Lily, and they both laughed. Lily smiled. It was more than just a club. It was a community she had created, a place where everyone could find their strength. At the end of the semester, Lily found a keychain in the shape of tiny boxing gloves in her locker with a note. To the girl who taught us all to stand up for ourselves, thank you for the awakening. J, B, and K. Lily smiled. It was more than just an apology. It was recognition. It was proof that people could change, even those who seemed hopeless. Lily came to Northwood High expecting to be invisible, just to get through 2 years without drawing attention. Instead, she found her voice, confidence, and a place where she truly felt at home. She became a symbol of change, reflecting everything that had transformed since that day on the stairs. The bullies had picked the wrong girl to torment, but perhaps in a strange way, they had chosen exactly the one who was needed. The one who could show them and everyone else that strength lies not in bullying or fear, but in standing up for what is right, protecting oneself and others, and having the courage to be exactly who you are. Lily pushed open the cafeteria doors, holding her head high. The shy new girl was gone. In her place stood Lily Evans, strong, confident, and finally at home. She walked past the table where Jake, Brad, and Kevin sat. They looked up at her, and there was no mockery or fear on their faces, only respect. Jake nodded at her, and Lily responded with a light smile. The world at Northwood High had changed, and she was a part of it. She knew her journey wouldn't end after graduating from Northwood. Perhaps she would continue practicing martial arts, maybe become a coach, helping others find their inner strength. Or maybe she would find a completely new path. But one thing was clear: she would never be invisible again. She had found her voice, and now she was ready to use it to change the world, one step, one punch, one word at a time.